Hello, and welcome to this week's Monday Moments. You may be thinking to yourself, wait a minute, that's two things are wrong, three things are different with this Monday Moment. One, he's wearing a mask today, so hopefully you can hear me. Second, you're going, I don't remember that room in the theater. And third, you're like, that's not Elena or Missy. So you are right on all accounts. We are here today down at the Gage County Museum. And we are here because there is a wonderful exhibit up right now that ties in perfectly with some of the themes and the timeline of Silent Sky. And so the museum has an exhibit up, and we thought, oh my gosh, what a great way for two of the area organizations to kind of share the spotlight a little bit and talk about a similar subject together. So I am joined here today by Megan Sothen.
Hi everyone.
And what's your official title? Director of?
I am the museum administrator of the Gage County Historical Society Museum.
All right. So Megan, why don't you tell us just a little bit about this exhibit that you've got up right now?
Of course. The exhibit that we have up here in this room is our summer exhibit for 2020. We do a new rotating exhibit every year here at the museum. And so this exhibit is up between June and September. And this year's exhibit is titled Women of Influence. With this being the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment, we thought it would be a good opportunity to highlight some of our female history icons, our local female history icons, as well as nationally known female history icons here at the Gage County Museum. And so Women of Influence is an exploration of women's history throughout, starting with early founding of the county in the 1800s through to the present. And so we just kind of explore how women's history has evolved during that time and how local women were involved with the different things happening in women's history throughout that time as well.
Awesome. Let's take a stroll,
sure,
as it were, as we walk backwards. We're walking, we're stopping. No, but maybe mention some of the highlights that people will find in this exhibit.
Right. And so with this exhibit, we talk. Oh my goodness. One of the fun things about creating this exhibit was that there is so much rich history here in Gage County that involves women's history. And so it was actually really challenging to pick the stories that we included here in the exhibit and what we chose to tell, because there are just so many. And so we absolutely were not able to cover everything. But just some of the highlights that you will see in the exhibit, we start with Mary Meyer, who was the first female homesteader. We hear a lot about Daniel Freeman and him being the first homesteader. Well, Mary Meyer was the first female homesteader who also homesteaded here in Gage County. So you'll see a little bit about her.
I did not know that. You're right. We do hear all about Daniel Freeman, but I did not know the first female homesteader as well.
Yep, first homesteader and first female homesteader, both here in Gage County. And then we explore the story of Clara Baywick Colby, who was a suffragist during the suffrage movement. So you're going to hear a lot about that this year with the ratification of the 19th Amendment. And so there's been some other explorations of Clara's history here in the state as well, because she was also very active in the Nebraska suffrage movement as well as the nationwide suffrage movement. So we also touch on her story as well. She published a newspaper called the Women's Tribune right here in Beatrice, from basically the basement of her house on her own, and it went on to become the national publication of the women's suffrage movement.
Really?
Yes.
I am learning all kinds of things today.
Yeah, so we talk about that a little bit too, but of course.
Oh, there's our example of that.
An example of what her newspaper looked like. So, yeah.
Yeah, and this is really timely, for our production of Silent Sky,
right,
because the show takes place primarily in this time frame, the early 1900s through the early to mid 1920s, and one of the characters in the show becomes a suffragette and is talking about marches on Washington and things like that. And so those sort of things aren't new.
No.
You know, a march on Washington to demand change
Right.
is not a symptom of our modern age.
No.
It's stuff that has been going on from the founding of the country, really. Yeah. So it's just kind of interesting how history always kind of comes back.
It comes in cycles. It
Mhm.
really does. And so, yes, we talk about some of our famous females, but we also wanted to touch on the stories of everyday people that are just doing their normal thing that, you know, are swept up into change as well. And so one of my other favorite parts of the exhibit is our Women in the War effort area. Throughout our history, women have been involved in supporting basically the wheels turning behind everything when we end up in conflict. But really, with World War I and World War II, women really saw an increased role in the workforce, especially World War II. And so we touch on that as well, with women coming into the workforce and filling men's jobs that they normally could not have taken part in because they weren't considered to be suitable for that work. And so that time period was really a catalyst for change in the workforce for women. And so once females started taking those jobs during World War II, they didn't look back, and the workforce really started changing after that. And so we explore that story as well. You know, and most of these women, you know, we don't necessarily know their names. You know, they were, you know, wives, mothers, grandmothers, just trying to make things work and going to work every day, and it ends up being a part of our larger story. So we talk about that as well.
Yeah, and we're gonna kind of move around here. We're gonna quickly travel through as we kind of hit our timeline here. We've got women in medicine, and yeah.
Right, and of course we also have a shout out to some of our local film, TV, and radio talent as well. Surprisingly, Gage County has a lot of talent in the performing arts. I don't know if it's something in the water or what, but hey. So we also touch on some of our females that have gone on to have roles in film, television, and radio, and so that's also a part of the exhibit as well.
Yeah, and then the exhibit ends in a really neat little thing here, where people can write little notes that say talk about who inspires them.
Right.
And there's my mom, my grandma. Grandmas are pretty popular.
But yes, as people go through the exhibit, we invite them to also tell us who inspires them. We have a lot of inspiring women in this exhibit, and we also want to know who inspires you. And so that's a part of what we have here, is so you can add your voice to the exhibit as well.
Yeah. So, and this exhibit is running for how long?
This exhibit runs until the end of September. So September 30th is when we close out this exhibit for the year. So you still have a little bit of time to come and see it.
Yeah. So when you come and you see the show, you can maybe plan your visit so that you come down to the museum as well.
Yes.
And what are the museum hours?
We are open Wednesday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
All right, so yep, on like Friday or Saturday, you come to the museum, you see the exhibit, you go out for dinner somewhere here in town, and then you come see the show at that night.
Of course, sounds like a great evening to me.
It does. All right. Well, we are going to wrap it up here, and I will also mention that today is we've got people liking here, so that's good. Today is the first day that Box Office back at the theater is open for the general public to begin making reservations for Silent Sky. And you can, in Silent Sky, you'll kind of see the context of a lot of this historical information that you'll discover here at the museum. And so make sure you get your tickets to Silent Sky with our limited seating capacity, as we are still, kind of in pandemic mode. So there's limited seating, limited live seating, and I will also mention that late last week, we were informed that we do have streaming rights for the show. So there will be a streaming version of the show that later this week you'll be able to actually pre-order your streaming rental of the show. So,
Nice.
All kinds of stuff going on. So Megan, thank you for letting us invade your space here.
Oh, anytime.
And we will see you next week.